Well, to talk more about this, we are joined now from Paris by Famke, who's a partner at the political risk consultancy Open Cities. Thanks very much for joining us here on Al Jazeera. And let's just pick up on that point Paul was making about not all the unions have been demonstrating. How sort of together, really, how unified is the opposition, and particularly the union side of it, against Macron's policies here? And how much do you think they speak for the everyday worker?
So the unions this time weren't really organised in terms of having a unified opposition against this labour market reform. What happened is that President Macron talked to all of the unions while he was in the process of designing this reform and made sure a majority of them were on board. And as a result of that, only the CGT, as we saw in the report, actually decided to take it to the streets and to formally protest these labour market reforms. And so, as a result of that, the opposition in France hasn't really been very much united in terms of trade unions on the streets.
He talks about wanting to bring down unemployment, which I think is at about 10%. Do you get the impression these policies would do that? Because in the end, surely his reputation, which is quite low in the polls at the moment anyway, hangs on what happens if he gets this through.
These reforms are the start of what needs to be done in France in order to address the labour market, which has been incredibly rigid and hence unable to respond to economic shocks, for example. And so what he's doing right now is probably just not enough to all of a sudden make unemployment drop. But it is the start of what needs to happen here in France. And also we shouldn't forget that the ultimate impact of such reforms always takes at least 12 to 18 months to really materialize. And it will probably be, if unemployment goes down in France over the next years, it will probably be as a result of a combination of measures that the previous president actually already implemented and what Macron will do over the next 6 months.
How does this work generationally? I think in the younger generation are often talked about having portfolio careers. They don't expect the same job with the same company throughout their whole career. This kind of protectionism attitude of the unions in some respects sounds a bit old-fashioned.
It is, to the extent where the problem that we often have, and especially here in France, where we have a rigid labour market, is that it really protects the insiders, so those people who are in a permanent position and have a job and tend to be older, and it really doesn't allow the outsiders, those who are not yet on the labour market, to access the labour market, and that is a problem. And so flexibilizing the labour market should benefit the youth in theory, and this is something that the unions maybe don't look at it quite that way.
Famke, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts from Paris.
Thank you.